Hi, I'm Joss Whedon. You're listening to the exciting audio commentary portion of this DVD of Innocence. I'm going to be discussing in, one might say, obsessively minute detail the creative process that went into the making of this show. A couple of disclaimers before I start. One, I realize this is not Citizen Kane. Citizen Kane is in black and white, and it's about a bald guy, so I realize they're not one and the same. However, during the creative process, one tends to feel as though one is making Citizen Kane because of the difficulty involved. You have to just sort of get yourself into the mindset where everything you're doing is incredibly important and genius. So if I discuss this as though it is the greatest work of fiction in the history of America, it's because I had to sort of feel that way, and because every decision you make as an artist is important to you at the time and has meaning even if it doesn't add up to a famous black and white movie about a bald guy. The other disclaimer is funny anecdotes on the set. If you're looking for the wacky tales of the crazy behavior of my funky stars, you probably won't hear any. The show is incredibly hard to make. Everybody works really hard, and there isn't a lot of time for the wacky anecdotes. Everybody on the cast is extremely professional, except for Tony Head, who is frequently without pants. We are now currently in the middle of shooting season 5, which means I have very dim memories of 3 years ago, and am incredibly tired, so large portions of this commentary may be me yawning and coughing up phlegm, so buckle your seatbelts for the ride of a lifetime. Let's start with a little overview before we get into the pointing at scenes and giggling. I created Buffy the Vampire Slayer as a movie a long time ago to protect, as I've said before, the blonde girl in the alley who always got killed. One of the distinguishing features of the blonde girl in the alley who always got killed was that she actually had sex. She always seemed to be punished for it. That bothered me, and I thought it wasn't fair. So Buffy was created as a sort of stereotype buster on that level. However, when we came back to do the series, we knew we had to keep her in high school for a while. We had to bounce her age back to 15, make her a sophomore instead of a senior. So the issue of sex was one that we were going to have to deal with eventually in a different and somewhat more serious way on the series. Innocence represents the effort to do that. What we basically wanted to show was a horror movie version of the idea of I sleep with my boyfriend and now he doesn't call me, and also he's killing hookers in alleys. As the credits run, talk a little bit about the show in general. I pitched it as the ultimate high school horror show. Very basically taking the pain, humiliation, alienation, and all the problems of high school and ballooning them into horrific proportions. The show works only if it resonates. That's the most important thing in the show. People forget this. People like to talk about the monsters and the makeup and the fangs and the horns and the whatnot. But the fact of the matter is the only thing that separates this show from any other, if in fact it is separate, is the kind of emotional resonance that we can get to by playing the entire thing as true life, just a little bit wonkier. The two things that matter the most to me in the work I do, emotional resonance and rocket launchers. Big Party of Five, brilliant show, and often made me cry uncontrollably. Suffered ultimately, I think, from a lack of rocket launchers, which obviously Innocence doesn't have a problem with. This episode, Innocence, to me is and probably always will be the most important episode of Buffy that we did. Important for a lot of reasons. It was important to the WB because we were moving to a new night, and this was the episode we showed in our new slot as the second part of a two-parter with Surprise. And they were worried if we could make it, and in fact we did very well. People really responded to this. I think it had to do with, what a pivotal moment it was in Buffy's life, and important to me and the other writers creatively because it fulfilled the mission statement that we first came up with, the idea of the emotional resonance of horror, the idea of the high school experience, and it also showed how much the show had evolved in the season and a half that we had done. Clearly, one of the most important things there being that our actors were all able to go such deep levels of pain and intensity that we knew we could tell a story like this. It's a harder-edged story than we were used to telling, quite frankly, an uglier story, and all of my actors were able to go to whatever place we needed them to, and we had realized that by this time. Nikki, Allie, Rabia there was so good for us for so many episodes, charisma, and of course Tony, who is, needless to say in this scene, pantsless. One of the great things of doing this series was to discover that my entire troupe of actors were able to do so much. Comedy, tragedy, heroism, cowardice, anything they needed to do, you could count on any one of them for anything and feature them in any episode. And although I believe that actors are, as David Greenwald says, rabid feral animals who must be put down, I think these are among the finest I'm ever going to get to work with. And of course, in this episode, so much of it rests on Sarah and David. Sarah taking her performance to a new level in terms of the depth and the pain and the complexity. And David, of course, going to a place we've never seen him before, which was incredibly exciting for him and a little nerve-wracking for us. We didn't know if he would suddenly become arch and ridiculous. But we found that there is a real monster in him, and we were very happy to meet it. After this delightful library scene, one of the many exposition scenes that we had to stick here, we actually had another scene that was cut, a tiny bit of trivia, Buffy sitting in class, teacher droning on, camera going in on Buffy as she just sort of remembered that she had sex last night, and the lighting around her sort of disappearing, and very kind of a little artsy and surreal, and unfortunately for length we had to cut it. Didn't really add to the narrative, and quite frankly I'm not sure if people would have understood exactly what we were getting at with the scene anyway. When I try to actually be an artiste, I tend to just confuse people. I'm much better at just telling things straight ahead.
I'm naming all the stars.
You can't see the stars, love.
Let's talk about villains for a second. Season 1 we had the Master. He was great, Mark Metcalf, very funny. Pretty much surrounded by stuntmen and not a part of the kids' lives at all. The idea with Spike and Drew was to get somebody a little bit younger, a little bit funkier, who could walk in the lives of our characters and affect them on a romantic level, on, a more visceral level than just, ooh, I wish I could kill Buffy. And to bring, some real twisted romance to their relationship was a fun new place to go. It said vampires are even more complex than we thought they were, as are people. And then, of course, Angelus, or Angelus as everybody called him for like 5 years before he got his own series, and we insisted they call him Angelus, which is what we meant when we wrote it. His triangle with James and Juliet, Spike and Drew, was, again, something we hadn't ever done. Very exciting for us. Real trouble because, now the villains were really a part of Buffy's life, not just external, something emotional that she couldn't fight. Most villains, more or less like the Judge, who we designed simply as a way of saying, this is a terrible thing, that you must have sex because it was so terrible to meet him. And then as a way of saying, unconditionally in this scene, that Angel had gone bad and that Spike and Drew knew it and didn't just have to take it on faith. We didn't want the audience to think for a second that we were just faking. That's why we killed the girl in the teaser.
No more of this, I've got a soul crap.
What can I say? Little filmmaking thing here. One of my favorite things to do is the long, sustained take. Not a thing you get to do in television very often, but a take that changes, goes from the 3-shot now to the close-up. Drusilla's going to come in, take over the frame, it's going to go to Spike. The reason you don't get to do it in television that often is if you're not the writer and executive producer, you can't make decisions about what we're going to see and what we're going to cut out. But because this was my show and I knew I was going to be more or less on time and not have to cut too much, I have the ability to do these sustained takes where I know I'm going to keep everything. I'm a big fan, O Fools, Minnelli, Woody Allen, people who keep the energy going in the frame when most TV sort of has to go to talking heads, one guy over another, 2-shot. On Buffy, we did have the ability to do little shots like that. You don't notice them, hopefully. They're not, the Brian De Palma, see how far I can take my Steadicam before we run out of film kind of shot, but they give you a much better energy. They make the actors work together. They use the frame cinematically, and to me, that's very exciting. But, of course, I spend a lot of time in a dark room watching movies by myself and have few friends. This is another single-take scene. Again, nothing fancy, just something to let everybody work together in the frame. Tony clearly very angry about having to wear the pants. This scene also contains Nikki's line, "Say hi for me," which is Probably my favorite line in the show.
Say hi for me.
We're about to get to another big relationship moment. We use this as a kind of a pivotal moment, not just for Buffy, but for Willow, when she's about to discover Xander and Cordelia are making out. One of the other exciting things about the show for me is the changing relationships. Obviously, in the first season we had Willow loves Xander, Xander loves Buffy, Buffy loves Angel, who is unobtainable. Very simple triangle, or I believe actually trapezoid. And as we went on in the seasons, we knew we wanted to shake that up. The idea that Cordelia, who was in the first season just resident bitch, would end up falling for Xander, who obviously played by Nick Brendan, way too hunky for the role, but still, able to bring on the Shemp. That would be a perfect sort of, romance, because they are so very wrong for each other that, of course, they must have each other, and they must have each other now. Charisma showed the adorable side, particularly here, the vulnerability and that little wrinkle thing she does with her nose that we had not gotten to see on her before.
I know, you were too busy rushing off to die for your beloved Buffy. You'd never die for me.
No, I might die from you. Does that get me any points?
It's one of the realities of high school. Nobody is what they are forever. They change, their alliances change, and sometimes dissolve. There is nothing more painful in the world than Allie when she makes her big eyes. When she makes her big hurt eyes, there's nothing you can do. She just kills you. And she can also play extraordinary pathos and huge comedy at the same time, which she does throughout this entire scene. I loved shooting this. I loved the idea that they had a We Hate Cordelia club and that Xander was the treasurer. I just think that says a lot about the way they make their clubs.
Cordelia, remember? The We Hate Cordelia club of which you are the treasurer.
Look, I was gonna tell you.
Gee, what stopped you? Could it be shame?
All right, let's overreact, shall we?
But I'm...
Willow, we were just kissing. It doesn't mean that much.
No. It just means that you'd rather be with someone you hate than be with me.
I know I was supposed to keep talking, but I just love that moment from her so much that I had to stop. Here we are on the front lawn of Buffy's house. She's going to go to her house, and then she's going to leave. Now, this is where we originally meant to shoot the Buffy runs into Angel and he's really mean to her scene. We did, in fact, shoot it. We shot the master. He came by in his woolly overcoat, and they tried to play the scene, and they were unable to. The master was no good. We couldn't get them there emotionally. We couldn't figure out why. Sarah felt it was all her fault. I quickly realized that it was all mine, but didn't tell her that. The fact of the matter is, she had to see him in the bedroom. She had to see him with his shirt off. And it had to be as intimate a scene as possible when Angel decides to torture Buffy by pretending he just doesn't love her anymore. This scene, one of the most pivotal things we ever did, and one of the most interesting scenes for me as a writer. The fact that I thought it could play in woolly overcoats on the front lawn shows that I still have a lot to learn as a writer and as a director, but we stopped filming that night. I told Sarah, go to the door and then just leave, and we'll go next week and shoot this in the bedroom where it belongs, which is what we did. And clearly they came up to the level that I hoped for and surpassed it. I wrote this scene. I actually felt like an ugly person. I didn't know how I was able to write this so easily. It felt icky that I could make him say these things. It felt icky and kind of powerful. It was very uncomfortable and very exciting for me to do it. And of course, David, well, forget about it. Considering he's about as nice a person as you could ever hope to work with, he plays a bastard with extraordinary aplomb. Sarah, breaking my heart in this scene, she was very worried about doing it too. Kept saying she couldn't do it. Till I had to become firm and say, yes, you will do it. And I realized that's pretty much what she wanted me to do. She wanted me to be mean and send her in there and be the tough director. And of course, I'm no good at that at all. I was like, well, darn it, please. And afterwards, she made fun of me for how bad I was at being tough. Clearly not Sam Peckinpah in any way, but she didn't really need that much. The fact of the matter is she took herself to that emotional level. She put it so beautifully on film. It's a painful scene to watch, and possibly the best one we've ever done.
I love you.
Love you too. I'll call you.
Interestingly enough, however, the next scene is more of an achievement for me as a writer than that one was. And you're probably saying, hey, this is the boring gypsy scene where the guy is talking really pompously about vengeance and whatnot, and why on earth is this an interesting scene? To me as a writer, incredibly important, because I had to take a lot of disparate elements that just didn't work. The fact is, Jenny had been sent there as a gypsy but had never done anything, had never accomplished anything. The gypsy curse didn't make any sense. He'd become a monster and kill more people if he was happy. That's not a good plan. That's not a good plan. And we introduced the idea of Jenny being a gypsy really late, so I had a lot of disparate ends to take care of, a lot of things that didn't make sense. But one of the things that I've done as a script doctor is take things that don't fit together and desperately try to make them all connect, because when you're a script doctor, they say, we are in love with all these elements. You cannot change any of them, just make them work together. And in this case, it was the idea of vengeance is a living thing. The idea that they served a kind of arbitrary God that was itself irrational, completely justified. The idea that nothing we had written before actually connected that well. I probably shouldn't be telling you this. I remember walking along the Santa Monica Pier, desperately trying to figure out how I was going to do this scene, and then coming up with this and realizing, with that one phrase, vengeance is a living thing, we could just sort of make everybody accept what had gone before, make it make some kind of sense. A quiet little accomplishment, but an important one.
It is not justice we serve. It is vengeance.
Some say the gypsy curse, a hokey concept, but Danish curse just doesn't sound as good. You know, I love the classics. Got Xander and Willow working in the school hall here. Big thing for us to actually just even have this hall, because of course for the first season we had just the hallway outside the library, and that was the entire school. We had nothing else. So when we were able to expand a little bit, Carrie Meyer designed us a great deal of the rest of the school, and it looks great, and it's just great to be able to work in. We're coming up to the scene where Angel finally reveals himself as a bad guy to our guys, and a very exciting moment. Of course, working on the most important principle, as outlined in episode 1, when in doubt, put Willow in danger.
Let me guess, no weapon forged.
It took an army.
Huh. Yeah, where's an army when you need one? What?
Whoa. I think I'm having a thought. Yeah, that's a thought. Now I'm having a plan.
A lot of the creepy going on here. I love the way Michael Gershman, our DP, is lit. Well, I've loved the way he's lit the show for 5 years, but this scene particularly, where you could almost see that Angel's in vamp face if you really look, kind of reminiscent of the Joker and when he first confronts Jack Palance in Batman.
I got something to show you.
Show us?
Yeah, Xander, go get the others.
Okay.
And Willow.
I don't know why people always think Willow's gonna die, because I'm really never gonna kill her, but it's always scary when she's in trouble.
It's amazing.
Willow, get away from him.
What?
Walk to me.
What are you talking about?
Don't do that.
Oh, I think I do that.
Shot this as a horror movie, but also as a Western. The idea of being over people, cowboy style, where they'd be holding their guns, to give it kind of an epic feel, sort of Sergio Leone standoff between all of them, and then of course Buffy herself. Makes it a bit of a three-way standoff, which is something, a little Leone trick.
This can't be you.
We already covered that subject.
Angel, there must be some part of you inside that still remembers who you are.
Dream on, schoolgirl. Your boyfriend is dead. You're all gonna join him.
Leave Willow alone and deal with me.
But she's so cute and helpless.
Very big fan of the epic, the action, the Western, the bigger-than-life heroes, and in the context of a horror movie, sometimes they don't go together, because one requires a great deal of space and an understanding of that space, and one requires a small dark corner that you don't really get. This scene gets to play both at the same time.
Buffy, you okay? Buffy.
This is another one of those takes I was talking about that you shouldn't really notice, but where everybody gets to work together in it and the camera gets to do some of the work, finding Buffy at the end of it. It just gives it a much nicer energy. It's also easier to do these things when you're writing the show and you get to work in the space. Whenever I'm writing a scene that takes place in the library, and we've had so many hundreds of them and everybody's so tired of the library, I come there, I walk it, I act it out, figure out where everybody should be. Finding Buffy at the end of that shot was all about the fact that all this is going on and she's completely in her own space and isn't a part of it. The politics of the thing are always complicated. You know, I said I didn't want to kill the girl who has sex, and yet I punish the shit out of her. That brings up a lot of issues. With me, I don't like the idea of a reactionary message that everything you do must be punished. I believe that Buffy and Angel were in love and that what they did wasn't bad. At the same time, I don't want to be saying, all teenagers must boff. You must boff now. Boff each other. Do it. It's complicated. I don't really want to be telling them one thing or another. But inevitably, in a horror show, you end up punishing people for everything they do just so that you can find the horror, the real emotional horror of everything they go through. Buffy drinks beer, not going to go well for her. Buffy has sex with her boyfriend, not going to go well for her. The important thing is to make the punishment emotional and not have her be axe murdered, and also let her grow from it, let her be stronger, let it resonate on a normal emotional level instead of on some evil higher power that must put an axe into their heads just because they dared to have sex. Eventually, of course, we deal with that with all the characters, but with Buffy, we knew it was all going to be about the pain.
I think I may need Cordelia for this one. And we may need wheels.
Well, my car's...
It might have to be bigger.
No problem, I'll get us. He is a van.
Good. Okay.
Care to let me in on the plan I'm a part of?
No.
Why not?
Because if I tell you, then you won't do it. Just meet me at Willow's house in half an hour and wear something trashy.
Well, there's Xander telling Cordelia her outfit looks trashy, when in fact it doesn't actually, but that's one of the little things that sort of falls by the wayside. I love the fact that Willow is the one who realized exactly what happened and is the only one. Again, her bond with Buffy is something that I find kind of transcendent, even when they don't get along at all. The factory, I adore that shot. We'll get a good look at the factory later on, but it's a beautiful set. Carrie Meyer designed. Seeing some Rennie McIntosh and some Frank Lloyd Wright in there, but mostly I'm seeing Carrie using our tiny warehouse space and making it seem just giant and epic. And these three work beautifully in it. Love and pain. Big contribution of Marty Noxon. The idea of love and torture and pain and power and bondage and all of these things working together in the minds of these people. Marty really brought a lot of cool, twisted sexuality to the characters that fit really well. The idea that Angel had driven Drusilla mad and that he wanted to do the same thing to Buffy is a good character thing, and it also saves us from the Sam and Diane problem, which was a big issue in this whole romance. We knew Angel and Buffy were going to get together, and we knew the moment they did, people would become bored with it, much as in Cheers, and that's how we came up with the idea of having Angel become the main villain of the show the moment they got together, because we thought that would keep it lively, and a lot of people objected to it heavily, but we did. I stayed back pretty far with the camera here and kind of regretted it. I really feel like I should have given Sarah a big fat close-up with this crying scene. She is really crying. She goes to that emotional place. I don't know how she gets there. I don't know how she turns it off afterwards, but it's pretty extraordinary. And I sort of backed off because I think of it as a cinematic frame, but of course on TV, I don't know if you see the detail as well as I'd like. But she's giving it to you anyway, so it's not a big thing. This scene, also a new thing for me, extremely artsy, kind of a Lynchian sort of darkness to it, and very sexy, I think. I wanted to get into the sexuality of this girl and her memory of what had happened without just being blatant, exploitive, obvious, or boring. Talked to Mike Gershman about just getting tiny, almost abstract pieces, and he had his lighting guys take a light and put it on an arm and swing it around them so that the light would change constantly. And then, of course, David and Sarah got into bed, and this was the first sort of sexual scene I had ever shot, and I was really sort of uncomfortable. They were great, laughing and scratching and clowning around and just getting it done and giving me the footage while Mike Gershman called out for the lights to move, and I asked them, touch her hair, bite his shoulder, and all that stuff. When we finally got around to recording sound for it, I was too embarrassed to ask them to vocalize it all, which is why the heavy breathing in that scene was me and Cindy Rebido, the sound editor.
You have to know what to see.
I love the brutality of that move. Again, a big sea change in everybody's relationships, using this sort of pivotal moment in Buffy's life to upset everybody else's. We've seen the Xander Willow problem, and now, of course, Tony and Robia, the Giles Jenny romance, gets squashed by what's happened.
I was sent here to watch you. They told me to keep you and Angel apart. They never told me what would happen.
Jenny.
I'm sorry, Rupert.
Robia really did wonderful work, a great presence, a great foil for Tony, and of course, what did we do to thank her? We killed her.
Till after, I swear I would have told you.
So it was me. I did it.
I think so. I mean,
I
if
don't
you-
understand.
The curse. If Angel achieved true happiness, even just a moment of, he would lose his soul.
But how do you know you were responsible for...
The clueless father figure of Giles. Again, a sea change as he realizes his charge is perhaps growing up a little and becomes very British.
No, I can't. I mean, those magics are long lost even to my people.
You did it once. It might not be too late to save him.
It can't be done.
They're talking about going to the old gypsy, and we use that as a transition so that we would assume it was them coming to him to save the surprise of Angel. We had an entire scene between the gypsy and Angel where he started to torture him and talk to him a lot. I actually cut it before we shot it. I said, guys, the moment he says hi, it's over, because I knew we were long. They were disappointed, but the scene gets it done. Look at the big epic crane shot in the rain at the army base. The army base you're looking at is the crappy warehouse where we shoot our show. We're at the far corner of it. The rain, a brilliant special effect, was because it was bucketing rain, and there was nothing we could do about it, but I thought it added huge production value, so I was quite pleased. Also because, not being an actor, I didn't have to wear my outfit in it, but that's why Nicky is wearing that coat and gloves over the Hawaiian shirt that he was supposed to be costumed in, pretending to be a soldier. See, we just stuck the fence there. Got about 16 guys, some boxes, and a couple Humvees, and voila, instant army base. It's a little cheesy, but that's really what I love about my show, is the amount of cheese that we can sort of get away with, the amount of how little money we have and how we make it look just a little bit more epic than it is. It's a little bit of an achievement, and I like that. Another big change, of course, this is really a pivotal moment in the evolution of Nicky as cool guy, Xander being cool, even while he's being a complete dork. We find out that he's got some soldier knowledge, that he's got some of the soldier in him. Of course, that meant that I had to write the soldier, and since what I know about soldiers is that they sometimes march, I had to ask a lot of people what on earth he should say to him that would sound convincing. I still don't know if it does, but he looks good, and really, that's all that matters.
Yes, I like to see the big guns. Gets them all hot and bothered. Can you cut me some slack? Give me a blind eye?
Then why should I?
Well, if you do, I won't tell Colonel Newsom that your boots ain't regulation, your post wasn't covered. And hold your gun like it's sissy girl.
You got 20 minutes, Nimrod.
I just need 5. Forget I said that last part.
Another little oneer. Ooh, that's the technical term for a scene that takes place in one take. Now you have inside knowledge and you're no longer bored as you were a minute ago. The other obvious great advantage of the oneer is it saves you a huge amount of production time unless it's really elaborate. These shows being impossible to shoot, and my shows almost always being the largest because I save all the best toys for myself, such as the rocket launcher. It's necessary to cut corners, and it ends up being a more interesting frame anyway.
Well, does looking at guns make you want to have sex?
I'm 17. Looking at linoleum makes me want to have sex.
I wish they'd hurry.
Willow and Oz in the van. Another very important scene, and I've talked about this before, but people not loving Oz. People very angry that Willow was not with Xander because she was so clearly into him. We introduced the character of Oz, who is based on an actual guy I knew in college. Somebody just so cool that he would just see how cool Willow was, even if she was wearing a big Eskimo outfit. In fact, because she's wearing a big Eskimo outfit. People not responding, and so I wrote this scene very specifically as the scene that would make them love Oz, because it's the scene that makes Willow love Oz, where he turns her down and refuses to kiss her. Again, you know, kind of gauging the audience reaction is a very big part of the show, and making things not just work, making you not just accept a plot twist or a character, but making you need them, making you feel about them the way your character is supposed to. It's the most difficult and the most important thing. And of course, Seth is so beautifully restrained and so completely charming. And look at Allie. Fall in love with him right now.
It's okay. I can wait. We're up.
Oh my God.
When I said we tend to go to an ugly place, we don't have a lot of blood on the show, a little blood on his hand, not a big thing. We don't show the body, but we show this. Yeah, I personally find that just unbelievably disturbing and grotesque. And I was amazed we got away with it. I'm often amazed at what we get away with. It's one of the joys of making this show. But it's so intimate and so gross. It definitely takes Buffy to the place she needs to be, which is ready to kill the boy. This scene gives us a taste of how this triangle is going to work, that Angel is in fact going to take Drusilla away from Spike a little bit, and that's going to drive him crazy. We did have a bit of that in the scene where Angel smoked the cigarette, but we cut it for length because we knew we had it here.
What happens if your girlfriend shows up? I'm gonna give her a kiss. Oh, you look spiffy.
Spiffy.
And poor James left all alone.
Happy birthday, Buffy. I hope you like the color.
Charles, we go to the factory first, but then my...
Again, not to be obsessive, but this is a oneer. And the rocket launcher. Truly a fine thing. We couldn't figure out how to kill someone as important as the judge, and we had that whole no weapon forged thing, and then we thought, let's hit that. Let's just hit it. And I believe it was Greenwald. We thought about a tank for a while, but it was Greenwald who said rocket launcher, and we knew that was something we could never do and we could never afford. And then we suddenly knew that it's what we desperately needed.
Do you want me to show you how to use it?
Yes, I do.
This is a really nice view of the factory. I love those chairs. They built those especially.
happened to beat them, where they would go?
I don't know. Somewhere crowded, I guess. I mean, the judge needs bodies, right? The Bronx?
It's close enough.
And we're heading for our great big climax, which will take place at the movie theater / mall. This was an abandoned department store. This kiosk here in the middle, we built ourselves. We put it up, and we turned this area into a movie theater area. And then this staircase that this woman's going up, we also built. It's not part of the mall. And these doorways actually go nowhere. You can see the flat behind them, because we were going to set stuff on fire, and so we didn't want to burn up the actual store. Killing extras, funny every time.
Not the exits, boys. It's all yours.
The judge. Buffy refers to him in this scene as a Smurf, and I can't really argue with that. His blue isn't quite as cool looking as I hoped it might be. That's the great call to arms shot that we used in the credits for a while, because it gives you a great shot of the group.
Oh, goody.
Who dares?
Again, the epic, the western, people far apart, the showdown, the shootout. It's a huge part of what makes her cool. When she picks up that rocket launcher, I have never loved her more.
This is now.
And here comes a lot of really fast editing with slow motion, which is my incredibly low budget attempt to be Sam Peckinpah for 5 seconds.
What's that do?
Beautiful stunt there. Had the camera moving as fast as we could as they jumped. That's something I owe to Luc Besson from The Professional. The dolly shot during the explosion. Usually people just set a camera during an explosion and don't actually do anything with it. We had to add a little CGI fire to hide the fake rocket actually bouncing off the statue of the judge that it hit during the explosion.
He's dead?
We can't be sure. Pick up the pieces and keep them separate.
Pieces? Forget the pieces. Our job sucks.
Now Angel and Buffy are about to have their big, much more intimate showdown, which we shot on stage. We built this little area to look like the movie theater area we designed in the shopping mall, and we rained the heavens upon it, poured it all over the actors for several hours there. They were pretty game about it, considering the warm water they had promised did not, in fact, come to fruition, and it was really cold. We had a couple of cameramen wearing giant plastic bags over them, and these guys.
Doesn't work anymore. You're not Angel.
You'd like to think that, wouldn't you? Doesn't matter. The important thing is...
And this is a fight that means more than any fight we had ever done, because it was the two people who loved each other so much going at it. And then, of course, in the middle of all that, quiet Oz moment, because the juxtaposition is always the most important thing.
Arm.
All the stuff that Angel says to her is just mean boyfriend, mean sexual stuff. It's all relationship stuff. The fight, epic again, but the pain, completely intimate. And of course, Buffy's response, more intimate still. This show is designed to be a feminist show. Not a polemic, but a very straight-on feminist show. And for her to be so abused by him, and for her response to be to kick him in what Spike would refer to as the ghoulies, it's very primal. It's very important. It's kind of empowering, and I kind of love it. This we shot the night we were supposed to shoot the scene on the lawn, Sarah being very upset that that scene hadn't worked. It was easy for her to get to this place. I think you're going to see some real tears from our girl here. She really used that emotion in the scene because she really wanted it to be as good as it could, and she was upset, of course, because Tony, as always, wearing no pants.
You must be so disappointed in me.
No, I'm not.
This is all my fault.
I don't believe it is. Do you want me to wag my finger at you and tell you that you acted rashly? You did, and I can. I know that you loved him. And he's proven more than once that he loved you.
Greenwald watched this and was like, oh my God, she has the best father in the world. And then watched the next scene. He's like, oh my God, she has the best mother in the world. It's so beautiful. And the idea that she can come back to this family for strength after her, sort of baptism of adolescent fire, the romance gone wrong, was very beautiful to me.
In my respect.
Our guys in post found me this clip of an old movie where she's singing "Good Night, Remember You're My Love," which just is so comforting and so sweet. And so the feeling I wanted to get, the sort of poignant loss of, that's right, innocence. Yes, the title did actually mean something. It meant not just a loss of innocence, but the fact that the innocence isn't lost, that Buffy is, in this sense, an innocent. That she hasn't lost anything of herself, even though she's gone through a painful maturing process. And that's why her mom says, you don't look any different to me here, as a way of stating that she's still the same good person that she was. We did the rocket launcher scene, and I was jumping in the air with excitement, literally jumping up and down like an idiot, as I have been known to. We did this scene the next day, and it made me happier. It made me even happier than my big man toy. That was a reference to the rocket launcher, not my other man toy, because it had such simplicity, such sweetness. Christina's so wonderful in it. Sarah, so good. And the two of them, they leave me with exactly the feeling I wanted to have at the end of this, of regret, of loss, of love. And the good news is, I'm done talking.
Grr, arg.
So remember to like, subscribe, and be sure to follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Phonogram, Twitter, Tumblr, Tinder, Grindr, Facebook, Twitter, Vagina People, Facebook, LiveJournal, Instagram, Tumblr, Twitter, Instagram, Grindr, Twitter, LiveJournal, Instagram, Grindr, Twitter, LiveJournal.